Hello, I'm Mass and welcome to Bonk Table. Today I'm playing 100 Kingdoms into Nords. Today's matchup was pretty good. It's featuring my new list that I've been playing so far, what is the Priest, the Mage, and the Imperial Officer. I'm going to go over my list and then my opponents with the scenario and table and then the actual battle report. So at the top, my warlord is the Imperial Officer because I want to use his rapid deployment supremacy ability so that I can get the Vanguard special rule for all my infantry. I'm running a 100 Kingdoms list with 5 characters and no cavalry. Just because the Imperial Officer supremacy ability of that Vanguard for that extra march when you come on the table is just so good and really gets your infantry units up the table and actually threat projecting and getting onto scenario elements way quicker. For his heirlooms, he has the Armor of Dominion and the Mantle of St. Nicholas. Armor of Dominion is anyone who's in contact with this stand loses Cleave and Smite. So if there is, let's say, a 4-wide stand coming into you, or regiment coming into you, that last stand will not be hindered by the Armor of Dominion because it's not in contact with the character. Mantle of St. Nicholas just gives Devout to the unit that the character's in. This is really good because my Dynastic Alliance Warlord is a Theist Priest, and I am wanting to get buffs out with that Spirit Shrine supremacy ability onto all my units that have Devout in some way, shape, or form. So I'm either giving it out through heirlooms, I'm giving it out because they've taken a neophyte for it, or there's a Theist Priest in the unit. In the Imperial Officer's Warband, though, I got 2 Merc Crossbows. They're just MSU, so just 3 stands wide. They don't have a Standard Bearer. And then I got 2 units of Steel Legion. So I got the 6 stand block of Steel Legion and then the 5 stand block of Steel Legion. They both have Standard Bearers and Drill Masters. My Imperial Officer is going to be starting in the 6th one, and then the Warlord Theist Priest or my secondary Theist Priest is going to be getting into the other Steel Legion that's only 5 stands. And that's how I'm going to get Devout into that unit to benefit from the buffs that the Theist Priests provide. My Theist Priests are effectively the same. They got their spells. The Warlord Theist Priest, however, is Arcane 1 through 3, so he goes to Priest level 6, -2 stands for scaling purposes, and 3 allows you to just have a turn a failed into a success for whenever you cast your spells. That's it for him. The unit he's joining is just Militia Bowmen with Standard Bearer. The reason why I put Standard Bearers on both the Militia Bowmen that the Theist Priests are in is just because I want them to start moving around more. And once the Theist Priest leaves that unit, I kind of just want to run the Militia Bowman into whatever's in front of me, just so that it's a speed bump for my opponent. Like, they're going to die to whatever's in front of them, but it's holding back my opponent so that I can set up a counter charge or get something else that's a little more beefy into there. My second Theist Priest is just running Arcane 1 and 2. I didn't have enough points for Arcane 3. But the big one that he is taking is Glimmer of Faith. This is actually really good in this list because I want both my Theist Priests to be on the opposite end of the table and not near each other, but I also want my Theist Priests to buff each other during that Supremacy turn with Spirit Shrines, where any priest what buffs the Warlord's Priest puts that spell out on all Devout units. So having Glimmers of Faith what ignores line of sight and ignores range for any spell that is not self is really good. So during that Supremacy turn, this priest basically casts Blessed onto the Warlord Theist Priest, and the Warlord Theist Priest will cast Divine Sanction, what will give out Cleave and Deadly Blades to everybody. He's also in a Militia Bowman. So another thing I gotta comment about the Theist Priest is that this list is built very much for scenario. Like, I have a lot of scoring elements in it. So that is the Theist Priests that are mediums in light regiments, my 2 heavies, and then my 2 chapter mages what are in medium regiments of the Men-at-Arms. My chapter mages and Men-at-Arms are the exact same. They're duplicates. So chapter mages, they're both School of Fire and they're both Arcane 1 to get to Wizard 6. My Men-at-Arms are 4 stands each, and then they have a Standard Bearer and Neophyte. The Neophytes are just to get that Devout out that I've been talking about. I've been actually quite enjoying this list for the games I've gotten, and I'm really excited to bring more of 5 characters. What was, like, it's a lot, but they all play into each other, and when you want to kind of outdraw your opponent because you have like 13 cards in your deck, you can easily do that by just drawing characters. And also, each of the characters has an offensive spell, Holy Fire and Fire Dart. So if anyone is kind of playing chicken with you, you can just start shooting out those spells at people and be like, well, I'll just keep shooting to you until you're dead. And you'll see later on how I kind of use that to also support other fights while staying in zones and contesting. I'm just going to scroll down now and show you my rules. You can pause at any time if you want to read a particular rule that I haven't gone over, but here they are for you. All right, let's go have a look at my opponent's list. This is my opponent's Nords list. He didn't name it or anything, he just called it Nords. If I had to name it, I'd probably call it the King and the Queen, because the Cunning gear is built to kill, and the Volva is a very good support warlord. So let's start with the Volva. The Volva is the warlord, and the reason why he wants her as the warlord because he wants to give out that evasion supremacy to everyone in the army. He does use this very well to help out all his stuff have higher evasion, so that my cleave doesn't just like cut through him, because that's what I'm kind of hoping for. You got the spells here: Fruits of the Golden Tree, Warbringer's Light. I believe Warbringer's Light gives out Blessed. Hell's Curse gives out Decay to an enemy regiment. Glory of the Vine Howl gives out healing to the regiment that the Volva's in, and Aspect of Furin is terrifying. Oh, Fruit of the Golden Tree is actually +2 resolve. So these are actually really good spells, and they all have their utility, and having them all access to all of them really helps with the Volva do something turn by turn. For treasure finds, she's got Raven Messengers. She's in a big block of 6, so that makes her go up to 7 stands. So her resolve is going to be 5, and she's going to be projecting a 12-inch bubble of 5 resolve around her from her stand, and that's really good for having people around and also keeping Nord's armies around longer. Some of them have some pretty good resolve, but usually their defense is low, and then also so they take damage from just being hit, but also staying alive from not having lower resolve is very good with the Raven Messengers. Ruinous Shielding just gives Bastion to the unit that she's in. Like, particularly, I believe it's only the Valkyries, and then she has Tactical 1 that I believe is Tenacious, or not Tenacious, Indomitable, so you get to reroll a resolve. Her 6 group of Valkyries, they have Blessed innately. That's really good for keeping them around, as well as Devout. A funny thing about Devout is that it works against enemies who have Devout. So if you're a priest casting a spell on an enemy Devout unit, you actually get the bonus of... I'm just going to scroll down really quick so that I don't screw this up, but I believe it's less stands. Here we go. So you get to convert 1 failed into a success, and if the regiment has a care stand to it, the regiment counts as having Devout. So 1 failed into success. So if you start throwing out, let's say, Holy Fires into an enemy Devout unit, Hell's Curse, any of those offensive priest spells, you get to convert 1 of your fails into a success. And it's kind of funny that it's not limited to friendly units only. And my opponent and I did talk about this because he did bring it up to me at the start of the game, and I was like, oh, that, ooh, that might be bad because a lot of my things have Devout. However, as you see the game, the Volva or my priest never really got to each other, so for that to matter, but it is there, and it's also something to be wary of and watch out for. They have shield, support too, it's really nice. They get unstoppable from the standard bearer. This is a very solid anvil unit, especially with the Volva healing and providing those buffs that she has. Next, he has a Blooded. He's in the aspect of the Dragon, what it just believes gives him +1 clash or attack. No, Wolf gives attack. Dragon gives a clash, so he's going up to clash 4, which is really nice. 4 with rerolling 6s is really good when you inspire. But he's also taken the God Spear. I'm not going to try and say this word. So that gives him his impact 5 and his real impact 2. The Blooded also has Curse of the Wagner, which gives him more wounds, and basically puts him up in a size category so he can sit in with the, scroll up here, the Ogre. And they are very much a hammer unit. You don't really want this unit to be charged because you're defense 2, so anything with like cleave 1, cleave 2, you're just taking hits. Even on your 5 wounds, you're going to be destroyed. He just has 3 stands of them. So the Blooded with the Ogre are very good hammer. They just never want to be attacked. Even with Oblivious having to fail to resolve to take a wound, even with your resolve of 3, then maybe you're within range of the Raven Messengers from the Volva. But they will just die to base attacks. This is very much a hammer style unit. Fenrir's Beast Pack is a medium, and they're 110 points, but they are restricted. but this is a very good scoring unit for its point cost. It doesn't have a high resolver defense. It has some good attacks, but it's only class 2. Going up to 3s is not bad during the Inspire, and also like Opportunist and Fluid Formation. Like, it really wants to hit from the side when it does have to attack something. But what I've seen a lot of Nords players doing with this unit is they're actually just getting it to sit in their zone or run across to sit in their opponent's zone to start scoring it. Just because it's so cheap at 110 points. This is a very good backline scoring unit. And I would kind of recommend a lot of Nords player to actually use Vendor's Peace Pact in that aspect. The Cunning gear. Oh boy, the Cunning gear. He is juiced. With 7 attacks. He's Clash 5 base. He has both aspects of Dragon and Wolf for that Clash +1 and the attack +1. Is the figurehead of Nefar, what I believe re-rolls a successful range attacks against the regiment that this Cunning gear is in. So that really helps out as they march up the table because he's going to be within these Huskarls. He also has Jargir. Anyway, I'm going to explain what that one does. That's just Smite. Whenever the Cunning gear duels, he gets Smite during his duels, and then he has Vinda the Dancer, what is every 2 successful hits allows you to roll another hit. They don't cascade, like, every time, like, it only affects the first base roll, so he'll roll his 7 attacks, and for every 2 successes, he'll roll another die to get more successes, but then those also don't get rolled for more successes. So he can have like 13 attacks or something if everything goes well. His Mastery of Lessons of Jotun War is useless this turn, or not this turn, but this game, because it doesn't allow impact attacks against this regiment that he's in. However, I took no cavalry or brutes or anything, so he can't use it. Him and I did talk about this, and he's like, I'm gonna play this list. I'm like, all right, cool. And I started putting infantry on the table, and he's like, oh no, Lessons of Jotun War, not lessons at all. My opponent does play into a bunch of 100 Kingdoms, and his other 100 Kingdom opponent he's playing in has been running a lot of Household Knights, so he was like, oh, I'm gonna big brain him and get mass, and he'll never notice. And I was like, nah, I'm just playing troops, dude. Let's go to the Huskarls. So Huskarls, Shield, Impact 2. If you're running about Impact 2 on this unit, that's just a change from 1.51 to 2. They got rid of the rule throwing weapons and just gave people Impact 2 to represent throwing weapons. I think that's really nice and cool and interesting, and also really makes it easy for something like this. So a lot of Nords have Impact 2 instead of throwing weapons now. Unstoppable. So Bravery just prevents the fearsome and terrifying rules to affect this unit, as well as unbreaking the unit after draw events, but before they activate. They also gain Bastion 1. These are both provided from the officer upgrades of the Scaled and the Thegn. Man, I gotta learn Norwegian or Viking just so I can say these words properly. But these 2 officers provide the Bastion 1 special rule and Bravery. That's going to get them to defense 4 when they activate, so they have a very good defense with the Cunning gear there, who will just start tearing things apart. Standard Bearer for those rerolls. The Cunning gear wants to get in melee, you take that Standard Bearer. The Cunning gear is then also running 2 units of Bow Chosen. They just have leaders, no banners. This is a very good unit. Like, Volley 3 base, Clash 3 base, 4 attacks, 5 wounds. Like, they will shoot and they will kill in melee. This is a very strong unit, and he's running 2 of them. The last thing he has is a Mountain Jotnar, and I did talk to him about what the Mountain Jotnar is basically doing, and the Mountain Jotnar comes in and just kills objectives and then helps out. He's not there to be an anvil. He is a hammer, but he doesn't really have the impact attacks. Like, he has no brutal impact to lower defense, but he does have 6 impacts, but all his damage is from getting in there and just like cleaving through stuff with his 12 attacks and being terrifying. Defense 3, Resolve 3 is also like pretty decent, but on a monster, it just makes him a big target, and they kind of go down just through like a solid attack from like another unit of just like a 3-stand unit of Steel Legion will kill this thing. Just consistent shooting from like a couple different units will kill this thing. However, it is good for being that follow-up hammer and also kind of a support monster. Him being heavy and also targeting objectives to put those 2 wounds in each, it makes him very good at impact doing 2 damage and then cleaving doing 2 damage and just killing the objective. I'm going to scroll down through the rules so you can have a better read of anything that I've missed, or if you're curious about more, pause as you would like to go. After that, we're going to go into the scenario. Today's scenario is Forlorn Hope. We are playing the regular deployment, not Hammer and Anvil. Something to watch out for during this scenario is that you cannot bring in any reinforcements from the sides here. So after the first foot on from your and your opponent's side. So it's really just a lot of running up the table and fighting. There's 2 neutral objectives here at a very good spot of 18 inches up the table. This is actually really good for you to start working on it early on, and as well as your opponent to potentially, if you don't focus on this, to get across the table and take it from you. The 12-inch zone is only 6 inches from the back of the table for both sides, so this is very easy to get into for you and your opponent, while the 6-inch zone is just like 9 inches away from the back of the table, and so you can actually run in there pretty quickly. So scoring starts happening very quickly in this scenario if you have mediums with lights or medium units to get into these. Then that battle starts having this fight here, and it's really decided by who can kill who, and then who can get through to the other side to start scoring or contesting these zones. Just because scoring your 2 side zones and the objective killing it is pretty easy to do and pretty safe to do as well. Just to go over the victory points here. 3 for killing an objective marker. You get 2 for each zone you are seizing, and you are scoring 4 if you're seizing 3 or more. So that's the incentive to get across and have that push to victory there, is once you like break that hole through, or if you run something fast, let's say like around and in, your opponent has to watch out for that. But a lot of the points are going to be gained by 2 points for the warlord, 2 points for every character killed, and then 2 points for every regiment that's been killed. So that's where that fight in the middle is going to happen. And if you're like an objective scoring faction, you got to watch out for that, because the more killy factions will run away with those points, as well as scoring their objectives to get a lead to victory. Let's go see the table setup. So here's the table I played on today. You can see the scenario elements here, 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 and here. We got some terrain in them. That's kind of fine. They're not like taking over the entire thing, and also you can move through this if need be. This house does move a little bit throughout the game, this guy right here. Mostly because he just gets knocked and he's not secured, so we do move it a little to make it just better to play on. But this is a 3 size tall building. This is another 3 size tall building. This is a 4 stand garrison. We did look at this garrison, but it didn't really come up because our lanes of battle were mostly here, here, and here. There was thought of getting to that garrison, but then you're not really contesting anything, and you might not be shooting too much because of just the range. Like, Bo chose getting into this at range 16. I'm not sure what that distance is because we never checked because it didn't ever come up. It was there, but it wasn't really relevant. The other one to talk about is this 3 size big hunk of rock right there. That kind of also pushes away that garrison, and also you can hide behind it if need be. So let's say if I put a regiment and I either change the sands just to hide here, and maybe it was the priest with the glimmer of faith, so he can still cast spells out, but now he can't be shot at, but I can still score that zone. So there's a bit of counterplay right there, but it never really came up because no one went for that garrison. For the trees, we put them as obscuring. So if you're in it and getting shot at, or if you're shooting through it, you lose half your shots. But also it was hindering, so it didn't provide, it gave you mediums and heavies like -1 on the clash and got rid of impact attacks with them. The terrain here in the middle does come up for when enemy regiments start moving through it and landing on it for fights. And that does change who can do what, because I can tell you right now that a mountain giant does land on this trees here, and I also land on it with my Steel Legion, and we don't get, like, he doesn't get his impact, so he doesn't do anything, gets held up. I don't get my clash, my inspire bonus, That didn't really hold me up as much just because I had such a volume of attacks going into my target that I just made my attack rolls and said, here you go. Let's go have a look at the end of round 1 now. Here's the end of round 1, and I got my mercenary crossbows automatically in, and then I rolled 2 out of my 4 for my, or 2 out of my 3 for my lights, and I got my other unit of merc crossbows, and I took my support Theist priest, who's being represented by my noble lord, until I go build and paint another one up, and then a unit of militia bowmen. He automatically brings on one of his bow chosen, and then rolls and gets his other bow chosen. So this, at the very start here, we're going to have that skirmish fight between gun versus gun. I've ran up very aggressively in the middle here with my 15 that I can do because of the Imperial Officer's Vanguard special ability. And then I just ran the Theist Priest Militia Bowmen behind them. And the reason I did that is because the objective here is size 2, so I can see over and shoot this thing. And this is what I'm gunning for on turn few. Like, I have 3 lights, so I should be able to kill this thing very effectively, and also the priest can hellfire it, or not hellfire it, holy fire it very easily on. And the other thing I do with this priest is that I put him just toeing the zone right here, so that when scoring happens, he's already there. Also, he's the Glimmer of Faith priest, so that he can just sit there the entire game and cast. Things I do have to say, if I did play this game again, is I would actually deploy my warlord priest in this zone, the same way where my support priest is with the Glimmer of Faith, and I would deploy my Glimmer of Faith priest over by this zone, just because of how the game played out, and because the warlord priest doesn't have the Glimmer of Faith to long bomb those buffs. A lot more was happening in the middle here as the game went on, or not in the middle, but more on my side as the game went on, like in this area, that the warlord priest without Glimmer of Faith could have still buffed them and not been like, where I don't know who to buff. While the support priest could then have just used Glimmer of Faith and then just shot buffs over into that from this location. My opponent here he just ran up his like 12 inches. He's not eyeing the objective. Maybe he should have, just to like next turn moved up a bit, put some shots in. But he's mostly eyeing to start whittling down my shooting units because he does realize there's a lot coming for him. Except the bow chosen have a pretty good hardiness and like tankiness against lights, just because they are 5 wounds, they are clash and volley 3. Like, they're going to be doing more damage back than he is going to be receiving, and probably start winning fights. We did talk about at the end of the game that he should have probably deployed both his bow chosen on like one side and moved up together, and then just focus fired each unit. Because as the game goes on, he does start splitting his shots between units, and that's what allows my units to survive and live longer than maybe they should have. Let's go have a look at turn 2. So here's turn 2. For rolls, I automatically pick my chapter mage, or one of my chapter mages, with her unit of men-at-arms right here. And then I roll I failed to roll in the 2 down for the other unit, but that's okay. But I do get my roll for my warlord Theist priest and his militia bowman. For him, however, he does get his Fenris Beast pack right over here. He didn't roll anything else. He has a bunch of mediums, but he opted for that one because that is his scoring unit, and he wants to get on that zone over there and start scoring. And you could see he totally just did that because he runs like 14. For my warlord priest, eventually this guy comes on the table, and I just score this, and the other priest and the other men-at-arms are scoring this, so I'm already looking for those points. So at the end of this turn, I'm going to be 2 points ahead of him, but then I also go and kill this objective right here, and I'll explain how I did that. So I believe he wins the roll-off, and he moves up with his bow chosen right here, who get into this forest, so they're going to be half shots, and then they shoot into this merc crossbow unit. That merc crossbow unit only gets hit by 2 stands because this stand over here is out of range, but I still lose 3 guys just because he rolls 1s, and it's just like, well, I'm a merc crossbow, I just die. I, on the other hand, immediately start looking at the scenario, so I activate that unit of merc crossbows. They fire into that objective, whittling it down. The next thing I do is I have I believe it's the militia bowman here. They also shoot into it because I need shots. The merc crossbows on the right over here. I believe they get buffed by the Theist Priest, like he can reach them before they activate, so he just buffs them. And then they move up and they like take some shots. There's a dice back here. I think I only do like 3 damage, so there's like a couple health left, and then, you know, they get shot at and whittled down. So my opponent is splitting up his fire to whittle down both units, and if, like I said the previous turn, if he was focusing on one side, he probably could have just got a unit dead or done more damage to one so it'll just die faster than either my mage over here or the... Yeah, bro, just my mage just shoots in and kills the objective. Gets that damage in, and I score the 3 points there. That's putting me ahead on scenario. He already feels like he's on the back foot, and he's already kind of getting a little worried about, as more and more troops are going to be coming out as the game goes on, and how to deal with them, and then just kind of getting over my speed bumps compared to his list. That's the end of round 2. We're going to be looking at turn 3. Here's turn 3, and a lot of models have gone to the table. So I have an Imperial Officer right here who has Tactical 3, what gives them flank. So I automatically get that Steel Legion in. And then as my free unit I want in, I pick this unit Steel Legion over here so that they can automatically come in. So both my heavies are on this turn. And then I roll off for my Chapter Mage and Men-at-Arms, and they automatically get in. For my opponent, he opts to get his Valkyries and the Volva in, and then he rolls and successfully gets his Conning gear with his Huskarls, his Ogre with his Blooded in, and the only thing left he has not out yet and will be shown up next turn will be the Mountain Jotnar. So let's start with things that happen. We're going to get into, I guess, the fun bit. He wins the roll off, so he goes ahead and he gets into just up the table to start fighting me. I know from what I need to do, I need to start pushing my line. So I need to get mediums forward. I need to get my lights forward. I need to have stuff scoring in the back. And I need to get my Steel Legion out there so that as far forward as possible, because they're the ones who are going to be doing a lot of the work. And everything else is kind of just like a speed bump or a roadblock or just a tickle to start softening up targets so that the Steel Legion with priest buffs can actually do all the heavy lifting and win me the fights I need to win. So his bow chosen move up. They shoot right into the Men-at-Arms, and as you can see, they lose a stand here. The Men-at-Arms go. I'm not sure if I blessed them or not. I probably did. And they go in and fight the Bow Chosen. The Bow Chosen then lose a stand, as you can see right here. My opponent was casting buffs from the Volva out and blessing units, so I believe he blessed the unit on the left here. And then I just activated these Merc crossbows and like shot beforehand. But you could totally see that these Bow Chosens on the right here just shot and killed them. My mage over on the right, I believe, cast some spells in here. I think he like saved it all on his evasion, so I was kind of like, ah, great. Then my Merc crossbows kind of move up a bit and they start shooting as well into these Bow Chosen, but don't really get anywhere. So his Bow Chosen are still alive. They took in some plunk damage, but nothing too crazy. His Fenris Beast Pack moved back. You can see the little token for the scenario thing. I'm not exactly sure why he's moving around, like, and what he's trying to achieve here. If he's trying to like free up space, or if he's trying to like get something else in there. Because the only thing that's coming up for him is these Ogre and the Blooded, and he's, you know, marching up the table because he knows the Steel Legion are there, and he's gonna have to go deal with them with something. What's more than Bow Chosen? Because the Bow Chosen are for sure gonna die to Steel Legion. If I was him with the Fenris Beast Pack, I wouldn't be having them so far back unless I was afraid to get shot. But I think having them like just on the edge of that 3 inches, so that if I want to get into that zone to A, contest it, or B, score it, I have to kill and go through the Fenris Beast Pack, what allows more time to pass so that I don't score and maybe you get that score lead. It's something that I'm always looking for, is to try and keep my opponents out of zones and push them off and not letting them in. His Huskarls and his Conquer gear just run up. His Volva, you know, just runs up. Like, it's him trying to get into that position while I'm already starting to threaten things and getting into fights with his stuff. On the right side here, I have my Men-at-Arms and Chapter Mage just run their 16 from the Vanguard's Supremacy. And then I have my Steel Legion here run up just behind them so that they can get into that fight right away. I do plan to seek new escort for my warlord Theus priest into the Steel Legion. I just messed up the activation order and like the command deck. Like, he probably should have gone last, or maybe I should have had Steel Legion go ahead of time, but I messed that up, and that's okay. That's kind of like the learning of like how to play the list and what I should be looking for ahead of time and planning my steps. But also there's nothing in the middle here, so I'm not worried yet. Like, I don't need to be there, so I still have time to set that all up and get these militia bowmen just forward. Another one is, I believe this chapter mage is just out of range of these bow chosen, so I didn't get a spell off. But that's not the end of the world. Like, the militia are going to be moving up a bit, the Steel Legion, like all this on the right here is going to be moving up. And I plan to have probably the men-at-arms sit back and score this zone while the chapter mages kind of push as far forward as possible through reforms to just start supporting with that fire dart. With that, that's basically the end of turn 3. We're going to go on to turn 4 and see what kind of happens when the lines start to get crossed. Here's turn 4. This turn, my opponent gets his Mountain Jotnar in, and you can see him over here just kind of marching up the table. We did talk about this because he did move his Volva and his Valkyries back because he's planning to have the Mountain Jotnar jump over them and then get to the zone, but I just pointed out, like, dude, just put it there and then just, you know, like, charge the objective from there. This pushing his Valkyries and Volva back more takes them out of the fight, and I don't have to worry about them for the rest of the game, really. Like, they're too far back to be relevant to the rest of the fight, what's going on here. I'm just gonna start, like, left to right and kind of go through a couple things. There's a bit of a back and forth where I'm drawing characters, shooting off spells with the chapter mages, buffing with the priests, moving priests around, kind of like getting my casters out of the way before they die. And one of them that I wanted to get away like really quickly was actually this chapter mage. We want to fireball the unit of bow chosen right here that they're in melee with. Except I rolled 1 success and 5 failures, so guess what? The fire dart doesn't go off. Oh boy. Then I, get the men-at-arms to go. They just get into a fight with the bow chosen, so that, you can see right here on this dice, they only do like 2 wounds out of their 5 wounds, so the bow chosen are easily winning that fight as they just killed a bunch. My Steel Legion start moving up. They're still contesting and pushing this zone so that if, let's say, the men-at-arms and chapter mage die next turn, Steel Legion are there so that he still has to get through all these Steel Legion. But I also have this Theus priest who is casting Blessed onto people, providing that support. This is game, like, a lot of my priests just cast Bless. I don't end up using the Supremacy ability because I never really needed it, but Bless was just such a helpful thing with those rerolls defensively or offensively. Like, I'm looking to throw it on range units offensively, or like my hammer units, so the Steel Legion, or I'd throw it on my defensive units like the men-at-arms so that maybe they survive a little longer. I really like the Bless spell, and having a Theus priest in your 100 Kingdoms list is really, really paying off. Even having 2 of them for 2 Bless, and also just having additional cards in your deck so that you can just draw them to stall out your opponent so that they're forced to move to make moves that are suboptimal are also really good. A lot of the time in this list, my Steel Legion are going last because I'm waiting for my opponent to come closer, and I have enough cards where I can just outdraw them. Militia Bowman unit kind of starts getting up the table a little bit. Nothing too crazy. They were kind of stuck on their friends here. But on the right side, I have my men-at-arms here. They kind of just shimmy up a bit. This allows the chapter mage on the right here to like actually get a fire dart into that bow chosen unit. But I got bad news. Once again, I only roll 1 success and 5 failures. That means the dart doesn't go off and I don't do any damage. So that's real fun. Mercenary crossbows and bow chosen just shoot back and forth at each other. They're like, I don't know if I'm really going to win that fight, but I'm trying. I'm kind of like, trying to get rid of his stuff. Like, once those bow chosen are gone, his list opens up to me, so I can start actually getting into the juicier parts of his army. I can start getting into those Valkyries. I can start getting into the Ogre. I can start getting into the Beast Pack. Like, all that opens up. On the right side, I do seek new escort my Theus priest into the Steel Legion. After that, I do run my militia bowmen just 11 inches because they have that banner right in front of everybody. My opponent is like, all right, we're going to see how much flesh the Conquest can cut through. And I'm like, all right, cool. Because he has to, the only thing he's committed to the side is the Conquest and the Huskarls. And he has to go through militia bowmen, men-at-arms of the chapter mage, steel legion with a Theist priest. Like, I'm really stacking that side just so that I win it. And later on, like, the plan is to just have the Steel Legion and the Theist Priest swing into this zone and start fighting these Valkyries and Volva, while the Chapter Mage and the Men-at-Arms sit back, scoring that zone. For stuff killed, he's gotten 2 points for killing my Merc Crossbows, I believe the previous turn. But I've been just scoring my objectives consistently, and I have the objective marker in the middle destroyed. So that's just been like me farming points. And as this game goes on and things start getting hit and dying, that point difference is going to swing wildly. Let's have a look at turn 5. Turn 5 is a big one, as you can see. A lot of my opponent's stuff is missing. A bit of mine, but that's all right because the things I gave away were just throwaways. One of the first things he does is, I believe these bow chosen shoot into my militia or my mercenary crossbows, and then his bow chosen over here fight my mercenary crossbows, while myself, I had the wizard cast to try and do some damage. I had the wizard cast, do some damage. Like, I'm stacking those wizards up first because they still do damage, and also they're just draws to see what my opponent does, and maybe I can bait something out. I do a bit of humming and haw here because what happens is that both these bow chosens are left with like 1 wound and 1 stand. So you can see over here like 1 wound, and this guy's 2 wounds, and I'm trying to debate like which one to kill with my militia bowman. So this Theist priest casts blessing, puts it on the bowman, and I have to pick because at the time my steel legion over here on the left hasn't moved yet. You could obviously tell which one I picked, but I'm trying to decide, can I move up and like see past the Steel Legion, see the bow chosen, get like volley 1 shots with a reroll into the bow chosen to hopefully like sneak a point of damage and kill that, so that my Steel Legion who are sitting like right here can charge into the Blooded and Ogre and score me points and get rid of them? Or do I go for the safer bet? What is get my like more shots, because everyone here can see this unit of bow chosen, and deal 2 damage. So I opt with the more shots to get 2 damage with the blessed reroll. I end up doing like 8 hits because of the reroll, and my opponent fails his 2 dice and he dies. So that, you know, eliminates that bow chosen unit as well as scoring me those points. But that does open up this side for me to like get more stuff in, and also start projecting my threat of now having more guns than him. My Steel Legion just charge into his bow chosen and just kill it. Like, it had 1 wound left. I'm taking it anyway. I'm not super worried about his Blooded and Ogres coming into me next turn if he wins the roll off, simply because he doesn't have enough damage to kill and hurt me, but I'm also shutting off all his cleave where his damage comes from. So that's kind of what I'm banking on here when he does come in, because you can see the setup, like it's very much a who goes first gets the charge off and is going to win that fight. But I also have more troops than him, so I can take the hits while dishing it out. On the right side, this actually gets kind of funny. I did have my militia bowman here. His Huskarls and Conquest go right in, kill the militia bowman. The Conquest did it all himself. He actually did, they did their impacts. I think they did 3 wounds, and then I like saved my resolves, or only took like another wound for resolves. Then the Conquest goes and just like with Vinda the Dancer just does like 6 hits, and then like rolls 3 more, just like kills the entire unit by himself. And it's like, okay, cool. So he didn't even roll the Huskarls, like the Conquest just did it all for him. It's kind of like a sweet moment, just the Conquest going to town on some poor peasants. However, that did put him within 6 inches of the front of my Steel Legion, and I can see him because the Theist Priest is wider than my Men-at-Arm unit. So they just run right over the Men-at-Arms and get into a charge into the Steel Legion. For me to do this, I was dead drawing my Men-at-Arms. I got the Theist Priest to cast Blessed onto the Steel Legion, and with Blessed And the charge, they just murder all the Huskarls. They just died to the man. There was like 30 attacks coming out of Steel Legion, and they just slaughtered them. However, the Cunning gear did die fighting. Just thinking about it now, he shouldn't have, just because he killed those militia bowmen, so he had already fought that turn. But that's alright, not the end of the world if forgetting something like that. Like, he did kill 4 guys and I lost a stand, but I'm not super worried. I am scoring this zone. This zone still getting those points. My opponent is still scoring his 2 zones. But now I've killed a character and a unit over here, a unit over here, a unit over here. And the only thing he's killed this turn is the Chapter Mage and the Men-at-Arms over here. Oh, sorry, and the Militia Bow. But he's now losing a lot, and I'm starting to next turn I'm going to start looking at closing the jaws here, like getting this Steel Legion unit into this zone. Start swinging this way and like hit these Valkyries, hit this Mountain Giant. This other unit, Steel Legion, is start going to cut his path over here, and the jaws are going to be shutting on the rest of his army. At the end of turn 5, we're going to go look at turn 6 and see how well that does go. Here's turn 6. I do win the roll-off for this round, and it actually does matter a lot, because my Steel Legion on the left here immediately charged the Blooded and Ogre and killing them. I do touch this hindering terrain in the middle here, though, and that does not give me Inspire because I am a heavy going through it, even though it's 1 stand. And it doesn't matter, though, just because of my volume of attacks. I just slaughter the Ogre and the Blooded. They didn't fight, so they did do some damage back, as you can see here. Like, I lost 3 guys, but that's nothing. And as you can see, the Fenris Beast Pack have charged off their objective into me. This is mainly because he doesn't want me to be near him, and he also knows if I'm in charge range of him next turn very easily, and then I'm just going to be coming and killing everything and then scoring points. So he's trying to keep me back, but I'm just going to take that next turn, and that's going to be it. Like, Fenris Beast Pack are even less tanky and defensible than Men-at-Arms, so that's a very easy kill for me. My Steel Legion go, and they just swing over here. They're starting to look into getting into this zone right here. They're looking to fight the Valkyrie and the Volva. Like, I'm pretty sure I'm going to win that. Just cast Bless, charge, Steel Legion with their Cleave 2, start cutting through. It'll be a fight for sure. My opponent's Mountain Giant. So last turn, I didn't talk about this and I should have. He was positioned here. He charged the objective. He did 2 impact attacks with no brutal impact, and I saved both of them because the inactive player is the one who rolls the saves. So then he clashes it, does his 2 damage, and so this turn he does a clash, killing it, and then he does a charge into my Merc Crossbows. My Merc Crossbows don't take impact attacks because he's going through this terrain feature, what we've already declared as hindering, so no Inspire and no impact attacks. At some point, my Merc Crossbows are like, well, let's get the swords out, and they just Inspire Clash. They're not in the terrain, unlike the Mountain Jotnar, and I don't think they actually do any damage to it. Like, I think I whiffed both rolls. However, my Men-at-Arms on the right here have reformed, and my Chapter Mage is now closer to the Mountain Jotnar, who then shoots a fire dart, gets a couple shots off, and does a bunch of damage. My Thieves Priest over here blesses the Militia Bowmen, and they just shoot into the Mountain Jotnar and bring him down to 7 health. That's really good for me in a way that I am working on killing this thing without having any of the Steel Legion go towards it. It's really bad for me because the Mountain Jotnar is now +1 attack and re-rolling all his attack rolls. I'm just kind of hoping that I can kill it before it kills me. For scoring, he is now just scoring this zone. I'm still scoring my 2 zones, and I've scored another character and another unit over here. He did actually kill this objective, so he gets the 3 points for that. But he's on the back foot, and he knows it. So we actually call the game at this point for a win towards me, just because he doesn't want to drag this out, and we kind of can all see the writing on the wall. So I'm just going to go to the next panel and show you the end score. So here's the end score. We ended at turn 6. I'd already clicked this up to 7 because as I count score, I just click my turn timer up. So I got 35 to his 25, and as I said earlier, we kind of called it just because he's thinking like he's not going to be coming back from any of this, and that this is the game. So what can I say about this game? We did talk about this game, and some of the things that I did notice right away were the Volva and the Valkyrie were never like in the fight. They were never a threat to me. They were never going to be anything. They were never there. Even though Raven Banners gives you that 5-inch bubble, I never brought it up because he was always had units outside of it when they were taking resolve. So like the Bow Chosen when they finally got into melee were outside of 12 inches of the Volva. The Ogre and Blooded were outside of 12 inches of the Volva. Like the things that want that buff were away from it. And so we kind of talked about that, about having her be forward. You want to look for that spot that you can put a unit like that and be the anvil for any of your hammers, be the tanky unit, be the tar pit. Like they're very good for once they get into combat. They are blessed, so you want the Valkyries to be re-rolling to defensive rolls and then having the Volva activate after and just healing up any of the wounds we got through. That's a very powerful combo. He just never brought them up because he's using that unit to score the back zone and not being the anvil that it needs to be, while trying to provide the buffs from the Volva, but she could have been more effective if she was just up the table more. For the Bow Chosen, a fantastic unit. That unit is so good. Precision shot, when you roll a 1, you just automatically deal damage because you ignore defense. So good. The thing what happened was that he had nothing like to support or pass them to get into a fight after they were on the table. So once I got to them, they kind of just, like, even though they survived and they were a pain to kill, once they were dead, I was in a very commanding position of no longer being shot at or feeling threatened that I had to move forward. So I could take the game at my pace, what is, with this infantry list, kind of slower, but also, like, whittling away at my opponent, like, aggravating and agitating them until they come forward to fight my hammers. For myself, I didn't use the Dynastic Alliance Spirit Shrines supremacy this turn, or not this turn, this game. This is mainly because I didn't feel a need to use it. I didn't need the Deadly Blades and Cleave +1 from it to get through any of my opponent's stuff. Like, Nords is not very tanky. It's just, like, bodies and offensive capabilities. Like, they want to hit you before you hit them. And so just having Bless kind of be cast around and all the, like, on my range units, on my melee units, all that stuff was more beneficial to me than trying to set up that big Bless Deadly Blades turn. And that's kind of what I went for. Like, I still had it in my back pocket if I ever felt I needed it, but I didn't, and so it was just there available. And there's going to be games where you don't use supremacy abilities like that because you don't need them, and that's fine. For the Conning gear, the Conning gear is built to duel and kill stuff. I talked to my opponent about this, and every time he's built like a super dually Conning gear, no one wants to duel him, and yeah, of course no one wants to duel him. That thing is going to kill you. So we kind of talked about, like, run the Conning gear as a duel bot and then swap it up as a murder machine, and then during like a tournament or something that he hasn't played as a duel bot forever, finally put it in as like a duel bot to like trick people. That was kind of like a thing we talked about. But the Conning gear is a really good character. Just you need to have a plan for it and a way not to get into a fight with it, because it will win that duel and you don't want to be killed by it. Overall, I really like the list I'm playing. Having the medium characters, as I explained at the start, like scoring stuff, having the lights in the medium so that the chapter mage can start tickling things to, kind of like agitate and force your opponent to fight you is really nice, and also be scoring. And then, having the Steel Legion in there, just start cutting a path through everything with the Bless support. And I can also use Bless to reroll defense rolls, but I didn't need to do this game just because I was just letting, like, Militia Bowmen die for me, or Mercenary Crossbows die for me. Like, everything in your list can die, just as long as you've scored enough points at the end that you win by turn 10. And you're good. I just want to say thanks to everyone who's watching and listening to these battle reports. I'm having a great time, and I'm planning to do more. I'm not really a like and subscribe kind of guy. You are going to like and subscribe if you feel like it. So if you feel like it, do it. Have a great day. Bye.